lives.
Paris, thank you for that live report. We're also following developments out of Holyoke, where police plan to address the controversy sparked by comments made at a city council meeting earlier this month. The comment in question was brought up during a conversation about funding for ShotSpotter technology in Holyoke. Western Mass News reporter Kristen Burnell joins us live with this story. Kristen.
Chris, a news conference is scheduled for tomorrow with members of the Holyoke Police Department, where they plan to address the comments made on September 1st. Now we're getting you a closer look on what was exactly said. The Holyoke City Council meeting turned tense on September 1st as members discussed a $50,000 federal grant that would partially fund ShotSpotter technology in the city, a system that identifies where a gunshot originated.
When ShotSpotter is used correctly, the technology gives them a more advanced understanding of what they're walking and responding to and going into.
These comments led Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez to speak out in opposition.
As someone that was born and raised in the flats, I'll say a lot of the trauma that came from me was this police force. And someone like the presentation yesterday talked about like gangs and all this stuff. Like the police is a gang.
He then criticized the use of ShotSpotter technology.
I think, again, of having this tool to send more police out there into the community, it doesn't, for me, it's not to protect our people.
City Councilor David Bartley then added his response to that comment after Councilor Velez finished speaking.
Quite possibly one of the most irresponsible comments I've heard in my 10.5 years was just uttered. To not give the police tools, to limit the number of tools, to call them essentially a gang? That's going to go unanswered?
The council did decide to table the item for future consideration. The whole conversation getting this reaction from Hampden District Attorney Anthony Gallooni in the city last week, following an uptick in violence in the community.
Speaking of comments that were made recently around the issue of ShotSpotter, which is a technology the city of Springfield, for instance, has used for upwards of 15 years, it's never been characterized by anybody as something, as a tool of inequality, as something that unfairly polices black and brown communities. Quite the contrary.
The press conference is scheduled for 12:30 p.m. tomorrow, where the Holyoke police captain plans to address Councilor Velez's comments. Be sure to stick with Western Mass News, both on air and online, for the latest out of that. For now, live in Holyoke, Kristen Burnell for Western Mass News.